You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. Thanks to Kingsway Soft. Kingsway Soft's the leading integration solution provider. It offers solutions that make data integrations affordable and painlessly easy. Kingsway Soft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, Nav, GP, SL, as well as many other applications, such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, Kingsway Soft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration process as quick and easy as possible. And we're also sponsored by Alexa CRM. WordPress powers more than 25% of all the websites on the internet and is the number one choice for blogs, websites, and portals. Dynamics 365 is the de facto standard for sales, marketing, and customer service, and industry solutions. Now they can work together with the Dynamics 365 CRM WordPress plugin built with love by the Alexa CRM team. Capture forms, engage your users and customers, all without writing any code. Control your site in WordPress while keeping your data in Dynamics 365. Thanks to Alexa CRM and Kingsway Soft for sponsoring ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast. I have a podcast recommendation. Besides listening to our fine podcasts, I also listen to some other podcasts. And I recently listened to a few episodes of the Masters of Scale podcast with Reid Hoffman. And Reid is the co-founder of LinkedIn. And he interviews some really interesting people. It's kind of an entrepreneurship, kind of a little bit of a startup kind of vibe to it. He's also, I think, a venture capitalist, or he's an investor as well. But he had one episode that I listened to that he interviews Mark Zuckerberg, and Reid was actually one of the early investors in Facebook. So you think they're both social networks, but they're actually good friends. So anyway, one of the things, and whether you like Facebook or not, you got to admit that Mark Zuckerberg has some impressive qualities. As young as he was when he founded it, and to be successful there. But one of the things they talk about that I think is relevant to kind of what we talk about too is the idea of perfectionism. And he talks about mainly entrepreneurs, but people in business who are starting businesses and wait too long to release their products, for example, or have to have everything just right. And whether you're doing a social network or software or releasing ketchup, whatever your product is, if you wait too long, he says if you're not a little bit embarrassed by what you're doing, you're waiting too long. And that brought to mind, and I think we've talked a little bit about this, but the idea of perfectionism and just people I've worked with. I've known some people who are more perfectionistic, and that can be good because they generally have high quality work. But sometimes it can mean it takes a long time for them to deliver things. It causes frustration with customers because they're anxious to get started, and I can't do it until it's just right. And so that conflict between it needs to be better versus it's good enough. Do you struggle with that? How have you conquered the urge to have everything be perfect?
Well, conquered is a pretty strong word there. But I feel like I'm pretty good at this. But when I step back and look through a critical lens at myself, I think I wobble quite a bit on that kind of wanting to get the perfectionistic view of things. And it seems to me like I'm much better at trying to convince other people to say, no, it's good enough. No, it's good enough. Just let it go. And then I have these flashes, these moments where I see myself, up at 2 a.m, tweaking little, arguably stupid stuff in a deck for a presentation I'm going to be giving the next day, but I can't stop myself from trying to do that next and that next and that next little thing. So it's one of those where maybe do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I think, this also ties into what our last episode was about the magic of a deadline, because a deadline forces you to realize that, the date trumps adding additional stuff. It's kind of an agile mindset. It's like, we have this date we need to meet. So therefore, ready or not, here it comes. We need to make sure it's good enough by that time and doesn't have quality problems or we cut corners. But we need to make sure that we're still getting things done. We can always make it better. We can always have a phase 2. And it's just kind of like your house. If some people's houses are like the never-ending project because it's never good enough, and you sometimes just need to stop, take a breath, and then you can think about the next thing you want to do.
Yeah, so it's funny, as I hear you talking there, it reminded me not that long ago. I had mentioned on the podcast that I had created and submitted a tabletop board game to a game design contest. Yeah. And that the fact that there was the contest, first off created that deadline for me, which, we kind of talked about last episode. But what I did is I was getting ready trying to put that together. I basically structured a timeline for myself of what I needed to be able to get through to be able to have something that was, quote unquote done, where if I had to submit it, I might not be totally satisfied. I might not be, feel proud of every aspect of what I'd done, but it would be a playable game that had the components, it had the artwork, it had the rule set, it had all of those components. And I had set for myself for a month before the game design contest closed to have that, minimum viable product MVP of my board game put together. And I did that. I actually, at that point, printed out copies, played, got some feedback from people, and certainly did things like tweaking rules and some components and that kind of thing. But I also, from there, worked on upgrades for the artwork that was in there and the level of polish on some of the overlays in the, kind of the layers of what's physically on the components, and just kind of up-leveled a lot of that stuff. And if you ask my wife, I probably still spent too much time getting it too perfect, and I still think it wasn't quite good enough. But I had reached that point about a month earlier of, it could be done. And what was interesting about that is it gave me a little bit of a break where I knew I'd gotten over a certain hurdle that I had to, and then it was kind of like this sense of I have an opportunity to be able to make it better. I don't have to be doing this, but I can. And there was some drive for me to want to do that. I also wanted to win the contest and so forth. But it was that gave me that out if I needed it, which I don't know, maybe that helped give me the right mental state to be able to get more done than I would have otherwise. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've won several, not one contest, but I have had contests I've entered that I didn't win, but I still got something out of it. I entered a photo contest one time, and I'm not a good photographer, but I went for the quantity over quality approach and just entered like 25 different photos. And I think I won for the most submissions award or something. But I got something. I think part of my philosophy on good enough is shaped by where I grew up in Minnesota. I don't know if, you were in Minnesota, but I find Midwesterners have a very stoic outlook on life generally. And part of that is because you deal with a lot more extremes, especially, winter's coming. And, it might be nice in September, but in a couple months that it's going to be cold and there's going to be ice. And, so that kind of shapes you don't get people that I grew up around and in my family didn't get overly excited about things. They did hard work. My dad was a farmer. And so that kind of has the natural deadline built in that you got to get the crops in because the snow's going to be coming in a month.
Yep. No, all about the winter is coming mentality. That was a saying around here for me since long before Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I love it when I hear people like Sean Tabor in Florida saying winter is coming. Like, you don't know anything about winter. Deliver good work. Don't do shoddy work. Do your best, but know when to say good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's not productive this week, Matthew?
Well, the not productive thing that for me this week is most definitely push notifications. It feels like every app on my phone keeps trying to entice me with more and more and more push notifications, whether it's Facebook telling me that Joel just posted for the first time in a while, or Jessica added to her story on Instagram, my kingdom needs me in some game I have installed, or the Google Card telling me that a new story was posted about Mar-a-Lago. All these things are fighting for my attention. How much of that do you run into, Joel?
Yeah, I find that too. And every little game you install wants to notify you. And now Facebook Messenger has games. And so I think I have a message, but it's some dumb basketball game telling me to come back and play it again. So yeah, I find that too. So I go in periodically and do a notification purge. And I have iOS. You can do the same thing on Android. Yep. And, so I pretty much have it cut down and have notifications turned off on almost everything. Here's what I keep notifications on. Text messages, so that when my wife texts me, I can see it. I have my work email, although sometimes I think I should turn that off. I actually do have that turned on. And then just general system notifications, like there's an update available for iOS. How about you? What do you have notifications turned on for?
So I have tried to trim it down, but I have, all of my email apps, I still have it turned on just from an awareness standpoint. Text messages, yes. I have the Google Chrome browser app sending me push notifications, which sends me stuff from things like Facebook, where I don't have the Facebook app, but occasionally my browser sends me Facebook stuff. I probably have too many out there. I'm much better about that on I have an iPad as well. And there I keep it much, much, much more restricted. But that in and of itself kind of brings up another pain point for me on push notifications, where I'm doing double duty on some of the push notifications. I get it both on my phone and on my tablet. And the one where that really has hurt me lately is Twitter notifications for people who I follow on Twitter when they post something. Some of them have gotten quite chatty over the course of the last few months, and boy, that's been something.
What I do, I don't necessarily turn it off for all the apps, but I will as I get notified, if I see offenders that are over notifying me, I'll turn those off. And I keep things like the Delta or American Airlines app notifications are on, because they basically just notify when I have a flight change or my luggage is on the plane. Those are generally helpful. But if you find that your phone is constantly beeping, I would say look at the ones that are the most common, and the ones you don't need. Again, some of them I like to tweak a little bit. So like I have the AccuWeather one, and it lets you choose what level you want to be alerted for. So if there's going to be a severe flood warning in my neighborhood, I want to know about that. But if it's just it might rain tomorrow, I don't want to know that. This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. You can follow Matthew at his blog, connectingthedata.com, or on Twitter at MC Anderson. You can follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. You can subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that offers fine podcasts. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts LLC.